Welcome back to Memento Argentum, or in this instance, Memento Liber, where we are reviewing Book 2, Fetch, of Five Nights at Freddy's Fazbear Frights series. This one is probably my second favorite book, only because there's massive issues with the third place one that brought it down. Otherwise, that one would have been second place. I'm going to keep it vague, that way you can't guess, because I like surprising people. So Fetch has three and a healthy chunk stories. The stories' names are Fetch, Lonely Freddy, and Out of Stock. This book is quite a good deal bigger, quite a good deal longer. It is actually the longest book so far, so that's good heads up. The first story is called Fetch, obviously. It's 85 pages long, and it has one character technically is the lead, but he's got two best friends, and I'm going to count them as well just because. So it's Greg as the lead, and then Cyril and Hattie for his two friends. And that one is about them exploring an abandoned pizzeria, obviously. It's Five Nights at Freddy's. Of course, it's going to be an abandoned pizzeria. And finding Fetch, which is an animatronic dog. Again, the cover kind of gives a vibe for what that story is going to be. Fetch apparently can fetch things. Unfortunately, what Fetch fetches tends to get worse and worse as the story progresses because Fetch is also attached to Greg's smartphone, even though the tech should not be compatible at all. And it's a really fascinating story. Oddly enough, even though I kind of took a little bit of an issue with Into the Pit's sci-fi stint, I don't have a problem with it here because it's involved with like an animatronic, and the animatronics have always been more advanced in the FNAF series. So I didn't really have a problem with that. It has very much a lot of the tropes that are associated with horror. Like, it's not stepping outside of the horror tropes at all, which isn't an issue because it is more of a young adult story, which, again, that doesn't mean it's bad. I would honestly say that I recommend these two books to a lover of, for example, if they were reading R.L. Stine Goosebumps, moved on to Fear Street. If they're reading Fear Street, let them read FNAF, Fazbear Frights. They won't have any trouble with these. It'll be very much in line with what they're already reading. If the person, though, has a tendency towards a little bit of a sensitive nature where they overthink things, overactive imagination, I don't know that I'd suggest these books because some of them get a little twisted. Second story. Moving on. And in my opinion, Fetch is the least good out of the three again. The first story, again, is the least good story, in my opinion. But that doesn't mean it's a bad story. Like, it still plays well. We haven't reached the point where it's like, no, why did you put this in this book? That's gonna come. That's not this book. Story number 2 is Lonely Freddy. It is 76 pages long. The main character's name is Alec, and he has a younger sister named Hazel. Hazel is the perfect child. She is the golden child. She can do no wrong, and she always gets everything she wants because she's so perfect, while Alec is the bad boy, and he's always a troublemaker, and he's causing his parents stress and strife. And when you're raised to think you're the bad guy, you're going to act like the bad guy, which is the rut that he finds himself when this story starts. Hazel, because it's the week before her birthday, suggests an idea to him that he cannot help but accept. How about she be the bad kid for the week leading up to her birthday, and he be the good kid, just to see what it's like. Now, he thinks there's an angle to this, and unfortunately there isn't. I know that's a bit of a spoiler, but Unfortunately, there's not an angle. And even if, as a reader, you can tell there's no angle, it makes it all the more tragic when Alec himself realizes there is no angle. She just wanted to be your sister and be your friend, and you ruined it. Lonely Freddy is my. Oh, excuse me. I gotta take a sip. Lonely Freddy is my favorite story out of the Fazbear Fright stories because it has that train wreck that you can see coming from a mile away, but it's written in such a compelling way that you can't help but continue reading. And the story ends just as well as it begins. In fact, I actually almost feel like the ending is better than the opening, because the opening is a little bit bogged down with explaining how Alec is the bad kid. It is my all-time favorite story because of how horrific that story ends up being. And I appreciate that. That's part of the reason that I'm saying that I wanted to review these books. The third book, or the third story in this, is called Out of Stock. It is 85 pages long. And it's not bad. It's a little light on like weight, but it's also really fun. Like it's a fun story. But it's kind of like cotton candy. It's sweet and short, even though 85 pages isn't short, but especially compared to book one. But it's like short, sweet, and it melts in your mouth and it's kind of gone within a day, but it's not like a bad gone. It doesn't leave a bad aftertaste. It's just, oh, that was kind of nice. And so you just have like a fond memory of it that makes you kind of maybe want to go back and read it again or experience it again, but it's not memorable. So Out of Stock, main character's name is Oscar. His friends' names are Raj and Isaac, and there's this new device coming out, new toy. It's just like Tickle Me Elmo. It's called a plush trap chaser, and they must have it. But it comes out while school is in session, and they are not allowed to ditch school. And Oscar also lives with a divorced mom, so he's being raised by a single mom who sometimes relies on him to help out. So you get to see him try and juggle the responsibilities that his mother has saddled him with wanting to just be a kid. And he ends up wanting to just be a kid. And so him and his friends run to a store and they're out of the plush trap chasers. And there's a crowd of angry adults demanding a plush trap chaser. And how dare you? And then he realizes that someone's returned one. And there's a mention that there's something wrong with that one. But he doesn't care because he wants it so badly. Because him and his friends had pooled their resources. They had put together all of the money that they had saved up to buy an $80 toy. I'm rounding up. It wasn't quite 80. But like they pooled their resources to buy this $80 toy to enjoy together because they knew that they were going to share it. Like good friendship in there too. And so he goes over to the associates who are dealing with this returned plush trap chaser. And he's like, can I buy that? And they're like, kid, there's something wrong with this one and we can't sell it. It's been returned. And he's like, no, I will buy it. He ends up stealing it. While it is technical stealing, it is technical theft, there's also the aspect that he slams the money that they had saved up down. Like it was the exact amount needed to buy a plush trap chaser. He slams it on the counter as he runs out because he accidentally starts a riot because some of the adults overhear him talking about buying that returned item. So they're stuck with this plush trap chaser, and that's when they realize that there's something wrong with it. It appears to have teeth that are from a human and eyes that look a little too human as well. In fact, the texture's off on them. So when they get it home, Oscar holds on to it. Raj and Isaac are like, We got involved technically, but man, we didn't want any part of this. You should just return that. I don't know how you're supposed to, but you should just return that. Like, keep us out of this. And so Oscar's trying to deal with it, and they're trying to figure out why it doesn't even work. And then they realize that it only activates at night when there's no light. And then it activates, and they realize why that's a bad thing. Because it doesn't let anything stop itself. Doesn't stop for anything. It will chew through doors to get to the boys. And they don't want to know what happens if it catches them. So while that sounds I probably made that sound super exciting. And oh my God, that's pretty compelling. There's also the aspect of, I only remember that because I've got a weird brain for some of that. I had to read it like 2 or 3 times before I really remembered it. And frankly, when I was talking to my friend about the Fazbear Fright books, I couldn't remember Out of Stock's name for the longest time. Like, we were discussing it, and I was going, what is the name of the 3rd story in Fetch? I can't think of it. And then it finally came to me, but it took a while to remember, and I'd say that that's the biggest flaw with it, but I definitely enjoyed that more than Fetch, which is why I would say that from this book at least, Lonely Freddy is the best, Out of Stock is second best, and third best is Fetch. Out of the ranking for the books overall with all of the short stories, Lonely Freddy is top of the pile for this grouping. Second place goes to Count the Ways. I'm reading off of a board at this point because I can't remember. Count the Ways is next. And I know that that one is completely subjective because I'm sure there are plenty of people who didn't enjoy that one. The next one is To Be Beautiful, because I did really enjoy To Be Beautiful. I thought it was really well done. The next one is Out of Stock, then Into the Pit, and then Fetch. That is my opinion on how good the stories are. But Fetch isn't a bad last place. Like, it is definitely far better than 2 of the other stories. So I would definitely say that the first 2 books in particular are totally worth picking up, especially for $8 a piece, because they're around $8 a piece. That's not that expensive, especially for this much reading material. Like, look at that. That's pretty good reading material. And if your kid is into horror, pick it up for them. They will enjoy it. They'll find something to love about it. They'll at least find some character to love. So yeah, the next book that I will be reviewing is 1:35 a.m. But join me next time, also known as tomorrow, when I review The Court Jester, because I'm going to be reviewing movies this week, and then over the weekend I'll be reviewing the next book. So join me tomorrow for The Court Jester. Until then, adieu.